This is Doug DeMuro, and today I'm going to talk about new cars that are future classics. People are always asking me, what new car on sale today, right now, should I buy if I want a future classic down the road? What new car is going to be that future classic? It's hard to predict. It is really, really hard, but I'm going to do it. Today's video is sponsored by Cars and Bids, which is my online car auction website for modern enthusiast cars. So far, Cars and Bids has hosted more than 20,000 auctions of special, cool, exciting cars like this, and this, and this, and this. So, if you're looking to sell your enthusiast car, reach a wide audience at carsandbids.com. Okay, my predictions on new cars that will become future classics. Now, I'm going in alphabetical order here. I don't think some will become future-ier, classic-ier than others. It's hard to predict exactly which ones are going to shoot up more than others, but 9 cars-ish that I really think will be future classics that are brand new cars today. Now, the reason this is so hard to predict is because it's hard to figure out how the market is going to evolve and therefore what's going to be desired. You know, who knew the Cadillac CTS V wagon would be so hot when other General Motors cars had not been all that desirable? Who knew that screens and automatic transmissions and hybrids would make the mid-2000s exotic cars like the Ford GT and the Carrera GT so desirable? Who knew that the Acura NSX was sort of the end of an era, the Supra? It's hard to predict what will happen to the market that will make today's cars that much more desirable and exciting. But again, I'm going to try. So alphabetically, we begin with probably my surest bets on this entire list: the manual transmission BMW M3 and M2 that exist right now. There has been a lot of criticism of the new BMW M3 and the new BMW M2 for looking ugly. People think the front end of both cars looks ugly, and the rear end of the M2. Couple things. Number one, a lot of the most desired cars in the future are the ones that are kind of not particularly desired in their times. There's a million examples of this. The Lexus LFA, the Supra, I could go on forever. I think I've done a video on it. That's these cars. People are laughing at the M3 for its huge grille, for the M2 for its weird bumpers. You're missing the point. These are the last manual transmission 6-cylinder BMWs that will ever exist. They're going to be plug-in hybrid automatics after this. This is it. This is the end of the line for these cars. And so they are special cars. And I think that the things we're making fun of right now, the giant grills and the bumpers, I think they'll go down as sort of part of the zeitgeist of this era of cars in 25 or 30 years, like the big wing on the Supra and the Plymouth Superbird, and like various other things that have been kind of made fun of or not generally accepted at the time, but over years past become cool and exciting parts of like car history. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing here with these cars. Not only that, they're tremendously capable. They're fun to drive, fast, again, manual transmissions. BMW is not doing cars like this anymore. It will not continue to exist. And so we sit here and we talk about how, oh, I wish the new M3, everything's perfect, but I wish the grille was different. Or the M2, same deal. You don't get it. You can't make everything perfect, but this is as close as you're going to get. And in the future, when all the cars are automatics and they fly and they plug in and they're electric and they put on VR goggles to drive them, we will look back at these manual BMWs as the real end of an era in a very special way. And on that subject, my next car, new car that I think will be a future classic, the Cadillac CT5V Blackwing with a manual transmission. This is the swan song of the V8 rear-wheel drive manual high-performance sedan. I hope Cadillac continues to make it for a while. Hope they make another generation, many more generations. But the way the market seems to be going, it's fairly clear that that is not going to happen. The death of the V8, the death of the manual transmission, there's not that many of these cars left. And the CT5V Blackwing is the king of the ones that remain. From a power perspective, from a styling perspective, from a craziness perspective, this is a very special car. I never thought the Cadillac CTS V-Wagon from 10 years ago would retain value like it has, but the market proved me wrong because it's very rare and special and cool. And I think the same thing's going to happen to the 5V Blackwing. You don't see a lot of them. They're not selling in huge numbers. They're very expensive. But I think that as the electric cars, the automatic transmissions continue to just increase and come further and further into our world, the very few holdouts will be special, particularly as they age and particularly as the holdouts become less and less common, which is exactly what's going to happen here. That's a very desirable, very special, excellent car, and I really think that that car has a long life of being vaunted as a hero in the performance car space as it ages into a used car and then a classic. Okay, next one, and this is in a similar type of vein, and I think this one's very obvious. You're probably going to think so too. The Dodge Demon 170. This is the very final version of the Challenger, the most high-performance version with the most power that they made and the fastest acceleration. This car is very clearly going to be a future classic. Probably almost goes without saying on this list. You know, just like the certain versions of muscle cars were. I think there's a lot of enthusiasts who think that Dodge overmade all the special edition Challengers and Chargers, the wide body, the jailbreak, the this, the that, but the 170 and the original Demon are particularly desirable. And I think certain versions of the Hellcat will be also. But the Demon 170 is a limited production, super focused, you know, drag strip monster car with amazing power and performance. This car, more than any car, will be kind of the one that emerges from this era as like the ultimate of the second era of muscle cars, which lasted from, you know, 2000 to 2025. This time of these cars was really special, and this car was sort of the iconic emblem of the most special versions. Next up on this list, here's a very odd one, but I'm saying it because I want my words marked because I really believe that this car will be very special in the future. The Ferrari Daytona SP3, this vehicle. Now, you're watching this at home, you're saying, yeah, of course that's going to be special. It's a Ferrari. But I want to point out that not every Ferrari is special. For one thing, the regular production cars really aren't. The California, the Roma, the Portofino, they're not really gaining value. They're losing value, and they're not considered like incredibly special on the used market. But the Daytona is different. It's a low production car, and those are always valuable. That's what you're thinking. Well, I'm not really sure about that. Ferrari has started to make so many special cars that they've kind of lost the plot on exactly which ones are special. The SF90, the SF90 Spider, the 812 GTS, the 812 Competizione, the 48 Pista. Now they're doing all these SP Icona cars, the Icona series. And the SP1 and the SP2 are basically just an 812 without a windshield or a roof. They're not that desirable, and they're not really bringing big money on the used market, nor do they have a lot of interest. But the SP3 does, and I think the SP3 is going to go down as the desirable Ferrari from this era. In fact, here's a crazy one. I think the SP3 is going to go down as the most desirable automatic transmission Ferrari ever. More than the Enzo, more than the LaFerrari. And the reason is, number one, production is incredibly limited. They're only making maybe 700 of them. That's more than the production of the Enzo, but it's less than the LaFerrari. So it's very, very, very rare. Then you have the fact that it's a convertible. The Enzo was not a convertible. The LaFerrari was, but only if you got the Aperta, which was the very rare expensive version. Then you have the fact that it doesn't have the stupid hybrid component. The LaFerrari is a V12, big old V12, but it's also a hybrid. And the hybrid system will eventually fail and cause problems, and the batteries will have issues, and Ferrari seems to be washing their hands clean of that stuff. Well, guess what? The SP3 has that powertrain, but without the hybrid component. So you have a rarer car than the LaFerrari with the same powertrain as the LaFerrari, but without the bad stuff. It also looks insane. I don't know if it looks good, but I know that insane is what becomes successful later. And I think that the SP3 Daytona becomes a really desired car. I think in 50 years, when people are having conversations about the most desirable Ferrari models outside of the 60s cars, you're going to be talking F40, you're going to be talking F50, and you're going to be talking SP3 Daytona. And I sincerely mean that. It is a very special car. And by the way, when I say special in this case, I mean, new they were $2.5 million. I think this is a $7.5 million car at some point. I think this is a $10 million car. I think the Daytona SP3 is F40, F50 Daytona SP3 level of special. It is a really cool car. But next on my list of future classic new cars, this is an easy one for me, the 392 Jeep Wrangler. I think in the world where electric cars take over and where V8s and gas-powered cars go away, we will look back on the 392 Wrangler and people will say, they made a what? They did what with who? I think people are going to really think that's a special car. And you know, when it first came out, I thought, hey, this is going to be pretty popular because the off-roading craze was big and everybody wanted these bulky, brawny off-roaders. But the truth is, the economy's kind of been so-so ever since it came out. It came out late 21, you know, just as kind of the COVID bubble was sort of ending up. And fuel economy was a disaster, and the Bronco came out, people like that, and it didn't really sell as many Wrangler 392s as I was expecting that they would. And I don't see them as often as I thought I would. And I think that Wrangler 392 is going to end up being a little bit rarer than we expected. It was just really expensive, and it wasn't that visually distinctive, and so not that many people thought, I want to press people with this. And as cool as it was, it just didn't get a huge following. And so I think that following comes later in life when, you know, as Jeeps age, you look back at old Jeeps and people kind of get nostalgic, the old Grand Wagoneers and the old XJ Cherokees and TJs and YJs and, you know, the old CJs. And I think that the Wrangler 392 has a place in that panacea of special old Jeeps because it is just so absolutely ridiculous, and it is clearly such a moment in time car that will not be followed up on and will not be done again. Like, this was a period where you could get away with a massive V8 in a Jeep Wrangler, and it's over. Okay, next car, new car that will clearly be a future classic, at least according to me. This is going to be another one that maybe give you a little head scratcher, but I think the Lamborghini Huracan Sterrato will be a classic in the future. Now, again, you're thinking, well, every Lamborghini is a classic. Well, I don't know. That's kind of true. I don't think the Urus is going to be a classic, but the sports cars generally become like desirable cars, even on the secondary market. However, I think even by Lamborghini standards, the Sterrato will be a particularly desirable classic. For a couple of reasons. Number one, it's kind of the run-out model of the NA V10. The very last V10 naturally aspirated Huracan models will be Sterratos. And so that's a very special thing, like the end of the run for this powerful engine. But even when Lamborghini inevitably makes a Huracan replacement that is better and more exciting and faster, according to all the YouTubers like me in the magazines, the original off-roader version is kind of insane. And I think they will follow up the Sterrato with more off-roader Huracans, but it's just such a special and ridiculous and absurd car. And I just love it for that. And I think it is just so incredibly cool. And I think that combination of kind of the NA V10 and the first off-roader will always make the Sterrato kind of a particularly special car. Sort of in the same way that the Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale is. You know, they made a 430 Scuderia, they made a 488 Pista, all a 458 Italia Speciale. All of those cars they made special versions of, but the 360 CS has always been kind of the most desirable, most special, most exciting one. It was the lowest production number. It was Ferrari trying something new, and I think that's what the Sterrato will go down as. Like a very special end of the line of this special engine and a weird thing and low production, and I just think the Sterrato is plain cool. And, you know, I actually had placed an order for one. And then I canceled on my order to buy my Countach. And there are days when I wish I could have had both, but I couldn't. But I do think the Sterrato is a really special car. Okay, next on my list of brand new models that will clearly become future classics, the new Lexus LC with the V8 and the updated technology and infotainment. So, the Lexus LC came out like 2016 or 17, and when it came out, they offered a V8 version and a hybrid version. Predictably, the naturally aspirated V8 has remained the more desirable, more exciting model. So already the line is split. Like if you have the V6 hybrid, you're not really that cool. You know, the V8's the one everybody wants. Well, there was this other problem where the technology was just not all that good. There was this touchpad thing. It was like a mouse controller. They called it remote touch, and it just was not a good system for using the infotainment system in the car. And they updated this remote touch system in other Lexus models. And what I thought was going to happen to the LC was they were just going to cancel the LC and not update the technology. But instead, for the 24 model year, after the car had been on sale for like 7 years, they finally gave it the newest version of the remote touch system. I can't imagine the LC lasts for too much longer because it has not been a popular car. The high performance, expensive, big coupe and convertible segment is not very popular anymore. And so I have this feeling that the LC is going to be canceled only a couple of years after this new technology has come out. And that means there's just going to be a short period in there where you get the naturally aspirated V8, the new technology, and the LC all combined into one. And I think that the market is really going to appreciate this car in the future. For those who know, I think this is a lot like the Cadillac Alante when it came out with the North Star V8 for the very last model year. And as a result, those Alantes are worth 4 times what all the other ones are worth. I think that might happen to the LC. The NA V8 is already desirable, the LC is already desirable, but this technology upgrade, I think, finally solves every issue with the car right at the end. Okay, last 2 cars that I think will be future classics. New cars that I think will be future classics, both are Toyotas. Number 1, the GR Corolla with all the stuff. Manual transmission, but the circuit model with all of the fixins. I think this is a really cool and special car, a high-performance hot hatchback. It's been a cool, like, interesting try for Toyota in the hot hatchback world. It's not like the Focus ST where there's different versions, the Focus RS, the Fiesta ST, you know, the Civic Si, the GTI. You get many generations of those cars. The GR Corolla is like a very special, very rare and interesting thing. And the circuit in particular is desirable because it had all of the trim, all the options, all the features, and they didn't make that many. The majority of the original GR Corolla models were cores with less stuff because they thought people would be price sensitive and want less stuff. So I think the circuit is going to be more desirable. Now, I caveat here, if Toyota follows up the GR Corolla with another GR Corolla, like if they keep making GR Corollas, I'm not sure the original will be that desirable or valuable. But if there is no follow-up GR Corolla for the next generation Corolla, I really could see this car becoming like a desirable moment in time. If you get like a well-preserved manual transmission, top-of-the-line model, it's not going to be a common car. And I think a lot of these will be modded and crashed, etc. And just like the Neon SRT4 in the mid-2000s, nice ones I think could start to rise if you give them some time. The other Toyota, new Toyota, that I think is going to be a future classic is the manual transmission Supra with a 6-cylinder engine. The Supra comes out, the new Supra, and people complain, oh, it's not powerful enough, it has an automatic, so they give it a 4-cylinder base model and a 6-cylinder, then you get more power, then eventually the manual comes, and it's, again, the same thing as the LC. They finally refined it to the point where enthusiasts want it, and I have a suspicion we're coming already to the end of the Supra's line because it's been on sale for 5 or 6 years. Sales are not exactly stellar. It's not really flying off the shelves. You can't imagine it goes too long, but the very most desirable version has finally just come out at the very end of the product range, and so this is the one that people are going to want in the future. And even though there's been complaints about this being not a real Toyota and it's not like the old Supra, it's still a manual transmission, 6-cylinder, no electric stuff, no hybrid stuff, cool looking car. And I have a suspicion that the market will continue to value this car more and more as it ages and as it moves through. I think that the Supra becomes a more desirable car, and particularly in that configuration, it's just a cool car, and 3 pedals and a Supra. It's a neat thing that is not going to continue to be replaced as the market continues to move toward electric cars and crossovers and kind of away from ultimate enthusiast vehicles. So there you have it. You want to know what new cars are going to become future classics? That's my take. And I'm going to be right. You just might have to wait a really long time for some of my picks.